It's great to be here. Unfortunately, online only. I was looking forward to see you all real life, but unfortunately, with a short notice, my flight was canceled. And yeah, but that's all. That's also a chance for me to look for myself from different perspective. I was just looking on broadcast, and I was like on at the hall and was looking, and yeah, that's I was looking at myself presenting. That's yeah. Let's start. A bit of myself. I'm CTO at Statute and Google Developer Expert at Angular. In that slide, I also provided you a link to YouTube screencast for Angular Pro topics that I'm creating and providing for free. You're welcome. For any sort of questions that you have, I hope I will be able to answer everything today. But if after you have any questions, please ping me on Twitter. You're always welcome to ask any interesting questions or any sort of questions. And one more slide that I have to share, and I basically starting each of my presentations from end of February this year with such a slide because I'm originally from Ukraine, and that's a picture of one of our office buildings, what it was and what it is now. It's not now. You don't see a lot in the news right now than it was from the beginning of the war. But believe me, the situation is terrible, and yeah, that's great that people around Europe support Ukraine, and please stay with Ukraine. So moving to our topic, service workers. I plan to present it in such way. First, we try to understand what service workers are. Then we will go to section about how to use them. And obviously, because we are Angular conference, we will speak how we can tune them in Angular with the knowledge that we got from first two. Actually, I would say that's an ideal path to study any topic in any framework. If you want to dive deeper, first you need to understand pure concept and only after how it's implemented in the framework. And studying service workers myself, I found it's not actually a lot of materials there, and that's not good. We definitely need to improve the situation. And first, actually answering questions, what are service workers? I would like to look at it differently and put a question, what service workers are not? And we can compare service workers to web workers. But actually, comparing service workers to web workers, we can find that the similarity only in naming. And maybe also that both service workers and web workers can serve nice for performance tuning of your web application. But in fact, they're way more different than similar. It's more interesting to compare service worker with Angular interceptors. You probably all know Angular interceptors, so I will not go too deep in interceptors. They can allow you to do a lot of different things. Really powerful tool. Limits are only your imagination. And if you try to compare, so we have our user, it uses Angular application inside has HTTP client module that does all AJAX requests for us. But before, Angular uses Angular interceptors that we can intercept this call and either change the request or change the response. And only after service workers can take place here and after it goes to the server. So from this picture, it looks they can do the same things. The blocks are quite close to each other. So you basically can use service workers instead of interceptors or vice versa. But in fact, if we know that interceptors work only with HTTP client, service workers work with all your requests. By all your requests, it means you can also do things with requests for index HTML page itself with different sorts of assets like JavaScript images and with methods that are used directly for some reason, for some library, for another application, not with Angular HTTP client module. So, service workers, what we can say about them? They definitely can access DOM directly. They help you to control network requests. They use asynchronous operations, so we need to keep it in mind. Also important thing when you start working with service workers that they use HTTPS by default. And they provide us reliability, performance, and also nice feature like push notifications. Moving next module, how to use them. First thing we need to register our service worker. And when we created service worker file, we only need one line of code to register it. Obviously, we will add different conditions whether your browser supports service worker to prevent some unexpected situation. But that's the main line. And here, sw.js is service worker file. You can register it like so or use more extended version when you specify also the scope. What scope is? You can, during registration, you can specify where service worker will store their file, temporary files, cache, and so on. That could be quite convenient thing in terms of different versions of service workers or different service workers, that they will not accidentally use the wrong data. Here I provided just a manual if you didn't use service workers and you want to start to use. And if something doesn't work, just check the slide. It's the most known reasons you either forgot to use HTTPS or the path is not correct. So just check those. It will help you a lot to do it faster. So, and what is we said that we just registered service work, but what is in sw.js file? And here we can play with different service worker events. And for service worker events, we have installation, activation, we have messages, we have fetch command, we have sync command, we have also push, and also experimental one, content delete. That is not supported for all the browsers now, so be careful with it. And let's have a brief look at each of them. So, installation should be quite obvious. You can subscribe to this event and add extra installation options. For example, we would like to cache some content. That's not a problem. Event has specific method, wait until. It means until it's done, service worker will be not indicated like installed. And here in cache, we add some files. And please take into account also that add to cache, it's just a custom method. I wanted to highlight only event listener here. Add to cache is also quite a simple asynchronous function that uses cache API. So moving next, activate. And the most important thing here is to understand what's the difference between activate and install. For service workers, it's quite important to be consistent. And your application could be opened on several tabs of your browser. And try to imagine that on one of the tabs, service worker was already installed, and you have one version of the page, and on another version of the page. Or you are working with sort of functionality, and it's changed dramatically. So that's why creators of Service Worker decided to have two stages. First, installation. So Service Worker could be installed, but till you're using old version or till you have another tab with old version open, it will be not activated. So it will be activated only after. Next comment. I would say the most interesting one for us that helps to cache requests and do actually whatever you want with requests. Also with event listener, we add handler. And here with event, we use method respond with. As you remember, few slides above, we just added some resources to the cache. And here now with fetch, we want to use our cache. And we cache API. I also provided a link here to documentation. You can read in more details. Has nice method match. And match, like a parameter, has event request object. So you basically provide the whole object and it will do the job for you. That was fetch one. Next one is message. And message, if you work with web workers, messages are used a lot with web workers to communicate between client and service worker. And here, basically the same story. Only to post message from client, it's a bit different because you need to be sure that service worker is ready. So here you wait for registration object. And for registration object, you can send a message to service worker. And service worker will the same idea. And event listener can listen for all the messages. And also respond back to client with post message. And on client side, again, here it's a bit different. We can listen to messages, not waiting when a service worker is ready. So here we just say service worker, listen to messages. And we can organize quite a smart communication here. Synchronization. Synchronization is also important, and we can set up it in quite advanced way. When service worker is ready, we have our registration object. We can set up periodical synchronization. So if we need to synchronize whatever news, feed, messages, any sort of cache for a specific period, we can set up it with periodic sync object. And when you set up the interval, service worker for this interval will get this event. And you can check the event. And by the way, please also keep attention here that the event is not sync, but periodic sync. And you can do whatever you need based on specific event. So speaking about push, inside service workers, it's also as easy as messages. Only the complex part is to create subscription and send this push message from server. But that could be a topic of separate presentation, how to create push subscription right. So I would skip it for now. Also, before Angular, that's interesting thing for you to check how many service workers are already registered in your browser. Because you have, I believe, a lot of services, web applications, and you even cannot imagine how many. I found it for myself also that it's quite a lot, and even services that I don't use anymore, some service workers were also there in the browser registered. And now moving to actually Angular. Now we have a brief understanding how service workers work in pure implementation, and we can better understand what we have in Angular. In Angular, probably you know you can add service workers with schematic command ng-add, Angular PWA, that will install service worker package, that will modify your index.html file, update build config in a such way that after you have service worker bundle in distribution folder, also service worker Angular module will be added to your application module. You will have your configuration for it. And also, really nice one, that offline mode will work out of box. It means after this command, your application will be ready to work offline because they, by default, already implemented cache strategy that we looked before. So cache. What is cached by default? By default, index page is cached, icons, some build artifacts, and assets. If you want to know more details, you can go to web developer tools, to your application, and you can check the cache storage for all the items that were cached. How you can set up it yourself? Exactly with configuration ng swconfig. As you see here, that's the configuration for basic application. but it could be much more advanced. Let's look more in more details. What you can set up. First of all, what is installation mode? What is update mode? Well, probably you can have a guess out of this naming that installation mode, that's something you do first time, and update mode, that's after you want to update. And for both, we have different strategy. We have prefetch strategy and we have lazy strategy. Prefetch starts when you haven't requested the content, some JavaScript, CSS, or image. And lazy one will only start caching when you're already requesting this content at least once. Depends on the situation, you can decide what would be the better for different sort of resource. Also, it's possible to cache external resources, not only local, from another domain. Only you need to be sure that you're using HTTPS connection. Also, it's possible to cache different HTTP requests with help of data groups block. What do we have in data groups section? Actually, quite a lot of parameters. We can set not only URL, but also age and strategy. Again, what's strategy here? We have freshness and performance. From the naming, we could also understand that performance, it means if we have cache, let's use cache as fast as possible. Or freshness, vice versa, let's use, if it's possible to get a request, if we are not offline, let's use the fresh data first. Here is an example of data group configuration object. We have some naming, we have specific URL with pattern, what we want to cache. Also size, age, and strategy. We decided to have freshness here. And also one more important subtopic for it is how to deal with situation when you have update of your application, of your service worker, and it's deployed, and you want your user also to know it and to update it. Angular provides for this specific service in Angular module. It's SW update, and you can subscribe for updates. And if the service sees that there is an update, you can react on it. How? Probably the best way first to show some sort of user prompt that there is a new application deployed. Do you want to update or not? And if yes, reload the page to let service worker start. So that's basically it. If you have any questions, you're welcome. If after you will have any questions, as I said, please ping me in Twitter. I'll be happy to answer. And also,
Okay. Can you hear me?
yes.
Yes, great. Oh, yeah, I have two microphones. One is for Stepan and one is for the room. So that's the thing. Thank you very much, Stepan. Thank you. Great. So, any question? Yes, we have one.
Thank you. Is there a way to invalidate data in cache, specific data?
You mean in a way of push notifications?
Can you repeat, please?
I mean, is there a way to force and invalidate data in cache?
Yeah, sure. You can work with Cache API. That's the link I provided. It's quite extensive documentation for Cache API that you can check. So it's possible. It's possible not only to put in cache here, what I showed, to work with this cache, but also to clean, and with help of push notifications, I believe it's also possible to send the command to service worker to either to update the cache or to clean the cache.
Thank you. Any other questions? So, no? No one? Okay, so thank you very much, Stepan, for being with us. Can we give him another round of applause, please? Yeah.
Thank you.